Tonight's episode is brought to you by Leap Spirits. Not only did September bring the start of football season, but for fans of Leap Spirits and the Green Bay Packers, it's a special time of year because Packers legend and Leap Spirits co-founder Leroy Butler is now a member of the NFL Hall of Fame.
Yeah, and Dane, to commemorate that special occasion and gear up for football season, Leap Spirits created a Hall of Fame limited edition bottle featuring Leroy. This special edition bottle comes with the same great recipe, distilled from Midwest corn and incorporating a proprietary coconut filtering process that provides vibrant fragrance and flavor. Not only is it a must-have in any Packers fans' home bars to gear up for football season, when it's gone, the bottle will make a perfect addition to your memorabilia collection.
Wag's Leap Vodka has been recognized for excellence by industry experts from coast to coast and was recently awarded Wisconsin's Vodka of the Year. So, folks, to find Leap Vodka and Leapin' Lemonade in a retail store or restaurant anywhere in Wisconsin, visit leapspirits.com and click to find Leap Vodka. See show notes for details.
Every year I know we gonna go hard. We been that team ever since Bart started. All my cheese heads go pack go. Ain't showing no mercy, cutting no slack, no. I ain't a bad sport and I'll even wish you good luck. Only thing I will.
Good evening. Welcome to Lombardi's Legends podcast. I am Wags. Joining me, as always, is Dane, coming off a big week 3 road win for the second year in a row. Dane looked crummy week 1, did just enough in week 2, and maybe pull a surprise win in week 3. So how you feeling today?
I feel great. Going on the road, beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in Tampa. I mean, I don't care how they won. We won, man. I mean, we'll get into the nuts and bolts, but end of the day, I'll take an ugly win over an ugly loss any day of the week. And frankly, if you're going to lean on a defensive performance, some games are going to look ugly, but it might be part of the plan. I thought the defense played phenomenal football throughout the game. Offense started hot and then, dropped off. But who cares? It's a team effort. The Packers went down to Tampa Bay, took care of business. And I'll tell you what, if you had to choose between our fan base and Tampa Bay's fan base right now, I'll take where we're sitting any day of the week. So I'm feeling really good on a victory Monday night, Wags.
Yeah, I think after that second half, there's probably a segment of Packer fans that are thinking, oh, they did not look good at all, but they played darn near perfect football in the first half. So, Dane, I agree. We can get into that. And it's interesting, sort of a paradigm shift. It's been so long since we had a game like that where defense and special teams was the sole reason we won the game. And, folks, I'll tell you what, just because the offense doesn't look amazing for 4 quarters, there's no reason to panic. This is a football team that's built to win games like this. So that's good news as far as I'm concerned. The offense can only get better moving forward. And there's not a whole lot of defenses across the league that I think are going to be able to shut down any Packers offensive players like the Bucs did yesterday in the second half. Could have they been better? Yeah, we'll get into that. I think there's certainly takeaways and areas to improve in all elements of the game. But Dane, I couldn't agree more. Any way you can get a win in Tampa Bay. I know they were missing some key players on their offensive side of the ball, but that's a big win any way you slice it. So
Wags, you're right, and I'm just gonna say it right away. Tom Brady doesn't lose a lot of football games. That's just a fact, and I don't care who his wide receivers are. It hasn't mattered for most of his career, and he just doesn't lose a lot of games, especially at home. Doesn't matter if he's in New England or Tampa Bay. So to go on the road and beat Tom Brady, no matter who his weapons are, it's not an easy feat. The Packers looked really good doing it, and they made Tom Brady look, frankly, his age, which is everything we were hoping for.
Yeah, absolutely. So why don't we start then with what is probably going to be mostly a very positive discussion. It's on the Packers' defensive side of the ball. There's not a lot to complain about here or to really get too down about. It was a complete effort, however you want to slice it. Jair Alexander goes out in the first series with a groin injury. When that happened, as far as I'm concerned, that kind of evened the scales with the Bucs having three of their top receivers out. We lose our top corner right off the bat, unexpectedly as well. Kajon Nixon comes in, plays admirably, but this whole defense, the way that they played was just exceptional. First series of the game, Bucs did a little bit, moved down the field, but Dane, progress. It wasn't a touchdown in the first series. They were able to hold them to a field goal. And, what did you see from the defense from there on forward? Because there was just so many positives, I think, to call out on the defensive side of the ball.
Yeah, and I'll start with a position group that I was a little critical of the first two games, which is the defensive line. I thought that they played a really strong game across the board. Now, Kenny Clark, yet again, Wags, just playing freakish football right now. He is truly one of the best defensive linemen in the league, and he's doing it week in, week out. Another 50 snap performance for Kenny Clark. I mean, dude is just playing a ton. So, I think as the game progressed as well, they played a lot of two down linemen, which I thought was pretty fascinating, mostly with Jaron Reed and with Dean Lowry getting kind of those snaps next to Kenny Clark. So a little bit less from a defensive line snap than maybe in some previous weeks. But at the end of the day, those two guys were extremely active. Whoever they were, Kenny and whoever was next to him. And I thought that they played really well and allowed for the Packers to get into kind of more of that defense with those four linebackers, which something we projected going into the game. We thought we'd see a lot of two inside linebackers. We ended up seeing a lot of two inside linebackers. The young man Walker, yet again, played really well. And Wags, Devondra Campbell, with the best game of his young season as well, was flying all over the field. So, I mean, to a man, we can talk about how good they were, but let's start right up front and right up the middle, the heart of this defense. The defensive line looked extremely strong. Best they've played this year as a unit, but then getting that second level, those inside linebackers, we thought they'd be key. They were key yesterday and playing strong football, not only against the run, but also against the pass, as we saw late in the game.
Yeah, I mean, we came into this week saying this defensive line was touted so much in the preseason, haven't really been seeing it for the first 2 weeks, and they really bought it yesterday. I couldn't agree more. But when you're holding Leonard Fournette to 35 yards on 12 carries, yes, you're doing something right. And that's a team effort, to your point. But I saw a lot of Devondra Campbell and Quay Walker moving downhill. They had a room to run downhill and make plays, and they were doing it all game long. So that was a Devondra Campbell that we saw a lot of last season. And I'll tell you what, Dane, if they're able to keep blockers off of both him and Quay as we move forward, I mean, that's just going to be something that's going to make opposing offensives' lives miserable, because yes, if they're not able to run the football, the defense that we saw against the Bears was not the same defensive line that we saw here against the Buccaneers. And I know that Tampa Bay was without some of their weapons, and you could say, well, that makes it a little bit easier to key on Leonard Fournette. But I'll tell you what, Dane, I thought that the Buccaneers were still trying to do a lot of the things that they're normally doing on offense, and it just didn't seem like Leonard Fournette had any holes to run. So I think that starting with Kenny Clark, I thought we saw some additional work from TJ Slayton. I thought Jaron Reed definitely had his best game as a Packer, and Dean Lowry as well. So just kind of going all the way down the board, those top defensive linemen, and they didn't get worn out over the course of the four-quarter game in a very hot weather day on the road.
I wanted to ask you about that. Were you surprised by that? I mean, I was impressed by the conditioning of our defense. You expect the defense to get worn down, especially some of the big guys. But, dude, our guys were feeling good. You could tell that our guys were flowing for the most part. Even late in the game, I thought that they looked like they had their legs under them. So kudos to them, right? I mean, I was really impressed by the tenacity of this defense and the fitness level that we showed.
Yeah, and neither offense was able to do all that much in the second half. So maybe it was one of those things where because the Packers offense was on the field a lot more in the first half than the Bucs were, they were able to, keep some of their reserves and energy up through the remainder of the fourth quarter contest. But that being said, how many times have we seen that, Dane, in a hot weather early season environment like that, where the defensive line just looks completely gassed by about the middle of the third quarter, and you're thinking, even if you're winning in a game like that, like we were yesterday, just didn't see that yesterday, which was pleasing to see. Kenny Clark had 50 snaps and Jaron Reed had 40 snaps. So
that's a ton
those
for a
guys,
big guy.
yeah, they were really putting in work for sure. Then, Dane, I also wanted to ask you, we covered D-line, obviously linebackers, but were you surprised at how well Devondra Campbell and Quay Walker were able to do in coverage? Because that seems like an area where teams would like to exploit some mismatches in when they've got both of those guys out there. Last year, we saw a lot of Devondra Campbell was the lone linebacker out there and a lot of defensive sets, but it seems like they're able to get away with so far having both Quay Walker and Devondra Campbell out there. And despite the fact that teams are running more crossing routes, trying to do what they can to create those mismatches, they just both seem to be holding up tremendously well, and not only holding up, but quite honestly, making a lot of plays in the pass defense as well. So can you comment on that? Because I thought that was really popping off the screen as well.
Wags, I mean, this is everything we could have hoped for out of Quay Walker. So this allows their play, his play in particular. I think we know who Devondra Campbell is after last year. He fits perfectly into this defense. But I'll tell you what, man, with Walker now there as well, it allows for the Packers to go into this 2-4-5 kind of defense that they like to play with their 2 down linemen, 4 linebackers, and then their 5 defensive backs. And in doing so and still being able to play the run and the pass in that defensive formation opens up a whole new bag of tricks for this Packers defense. They're stout enough against the run, but if they can trail running backs and tight ends the way that they did yesterday, it gives them that flexibility to be kind of impart their will on opposing offenses. So I'm incredibly impressed by what they were able to do. Man, Walker is just all over the field. I love his sideline to sideline speed. We saw Devondra Campbell, I thought, cleaning up a ton of run plays yesterday. It was just playing nasty. But, we see at times young guys kind of get lost in the fold, lost in the mix, maybe not pop right away. That's not the case with Walker. He has impact play. I mean, he had an impact play last week on the goal line. This week, he punched a ball out. I mean, this is a young man who early in the year is making major plays for this defense, Wags, and he's allowing for this defense to do things that they haven't been able to do in previous years and really play a little bit stronger against the run in addition to the pass. So I love what Walker's bringing to it, but overall, holistically, this defense just looks different this year than it has in past years, not only by the speed that I think Walker brings to the middle of the defense, but also formation-wise, they're really able to keep 2 linebackers out there for long stretches of the game, even in obvious passing downs like Tampa Bay was in yesterday. I was really impressed by that, and we largely were able to shut down Tom Brady, even with 2 inside linebackers in for most of this football game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I'll tell you what, just to shift to lastly, I think the secondary group.
Yeah.
How impressed were you, Dan, with Kayson Nixon coming in? I mean, what a performance! Yeah, and that's just couldn't be happier for that young man to step in and play the way he did was just exceptional. That has to make Packer fans and coaching staff and everyone involved feel a lot better about the depth of that cornerback room, because I know that was a little bit of a question mark coming out of camp. But if he's going to play like that, I've got no question marks at all. And we'll see what the extent and the duration of Jair's injury is. But I'll tell you what, and just not to just take any kudos away from anyone, because I think frankly, Eric Stokes has been playing exceptional football in all the games so far this season. Maybe he didn't have his best performance against the Vikings, but pretty good overall. And I thought yesterday was no exception. Rasul Douglas was all over the field as well yesterday with what he's doing. So it's interesting to see so far this season. Jair, obviously out with the injury yesterday, didn't think he had his best performance against the Bears, the interception aside. And I certainly was grumpy about the matchup and the scheme against the Vikings. We played all last season without Jair. We need Jair Alexander. So this isn't a, wow, look at how good the defense is without Jair. It's kind of, wow, look how good the defense is, even without Jair. So hopefully it's not a significant injury for him and he doesn't have to miss much time. But Dane, just comment again on this cornerback room and these young guys led by Rasul Douglas and Eric Stokes. But then Keyshawn Nixon coming in and playing the way he did yesterday is just exceptional. And it's going to pay big time dividends, I think, for this defense as we move forward as well.
Keyshawn was awesome yesterday. So just to put it in perspective, the week prior against the Bears, Keyshawn Nixon did not play one defensive snap by my count. He played a fair number of special team snaps, but not one defensive snap. Yesterday, looking at official snap counts, Keyshawn Nixon played 57 snaps on defense. Also played another 16 on special teams. Keyshawn Nixon played more snaps yesterday than any other member of the Green Bay Packers when you combine special teams and defense. Packers had to lean on him heavily yesterday, and he delivered. And not only did he deliver in the kind of way where it's like, oh, like I didn't notice anything bad, but he had standout performance on defense. He had a standout play on special teams, killing that ball on the 1 yard line. The moment was not too big for Keyshawn, and that's what was so exciting to see. So this was our first real extended look at him in green and gold. Mind you, he's a carryover. He's a guy who was over there in Las Vegas with the Raiders. And I look at this roster, and you bring over Nixon, and we thought when he signed with the Packers, yeah, you know what? We think he's probably going to make the team. We think he's going to be kind of a back-end guy. He's going to be a special teams guy because Coach Bisaccia really likes him, and, yada, yada, yada. What he showed yesterday is the moment's not too bright for him. He's a guy who's going to be able to step in a moment's notice and make plays, and it's not going to let his special teams duties fall by the wayside. He's a guy who just came out there like a professional, like you expect from a guy like him, and he played a full 60 minutes, 4 quarters of football for this Packers defense. And you've got to think, Wags, that he earned so much more trust than he probably already had in the locker room amongst his brothers on this team. Just kudos to Nixon. I love when guys like him have a chance to shine and then they do it on a big stage like a nationally televised game. So good for him. He's going to build off of this, but he's going to carve out a role. He's going to continue to, I think, on this defense if he can continue to play the way that he just played yesterday.
Yeah, it's going to definitely build confidence. Yeah, it's really cool. And this isn't taking anything away from these guys, but certainly the wide receiver course that we faced the last couple of weeks is not going to be, anyone's writing home about. They're only a couple of weeks beyond Justin Jefferson lighting our secondary up. So I'm not trying to take anything away from the performance at all, but we'll definitely see some more talented wide receiver groups in coming weeks. Maybe not this coming week, but in future weeks. And so we'll see how they're able to continue to develop and perform against some of the top wide receivers in the league. Dane, I do want to ask, it's one of those, it's an interesting thing. We're looking at the defense. As well as they played yesterday, there is still some areas, I think, for improvement and growth. And one of those is on the back end. It hasn't been a terrible performance for Adrian Amos and Darnell Savage so far this year, but just not exceptional. I think is kind of maybe like last week. We said the defensive line performance through the first 2 games was a little underwhelming. Would it be fair to say, or is this an unfair criticism to say that Darnell Savage and Adrian Amos have been a little underwhelming at times. And some of it's been communication issues that, quite frankly, guys with their level of veteran tenure shouldn't be having, especially in year 2 of Coach Barry's defense. So it hasn't been atrocious, but I don't think up to the standards that we would expect from either one of those guys. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that, and if you think I'm overreacting or just trying to pick out spots, because clearly opposing offenses are going to have a hard time finding weaknesses or areas to exploit. So perhaps that's one area that they might be under the microscope in future weeks as well. But what are your thoughts on that? Is this something that we expect them to just bounce back and start playing better? Or do you have any level of concern that there seems to be some recurring issues that can happen on the back end from time to time?
Well, I think I text you with 21 seconds left in the game as the Buccaneers are marching down the field. I think I said something along the lines, and I believe this, that if there's 21 seconds on the clock and the opposing offense has 6 points, you can't blame the defense if the team loses, right? I mean, like, I thought the Packers defense played incredibly well yesterday. I thought Savage played better, Wags, yesterday than he did the first 2 games, but the miscommunication on the back end is something I'm not quite understanding. As you pointed out, it's year 2 of Joe Barry's defense, so I'm not sure. We saw another, I thought, pretty high-level miscommunication yesterday late in the game, and you just can't have those breakdowns that late in the game in pressure spots. So I'm not sure where that's at, especially, you mentioned we have high expectations of Adrian Amos. I'm the first to admit it. He's a guy who's a smart defender. He's a guy he's kind of the quarterback of the defense, largely. He's somebody that knows where guys are supposed to be. He's not afraid to tell them where to be. So it's a little concerning that we've seen miscommunication. It seems like coming out of his end a couple times as well. And I'm not sure if he's the one that's at fault or if he's the one getting in the ear of somebody saying, where the heck were you? But either way, we're seeing some of that. So I expect that to continue to get cleaned up as the year progresses. But, get back to me if it's week 6 and we're still having miscommunication in the defensive backfield. And then I'm going to have to wonder what's going on in film. Where's the communication breakdown during the week in preparation? Because we can't have that if that's going to continue to happen. All that being said, Wags, I want to ask you about communication on that last play, effectively, of the game where the Packers stopped that 2-point conversion. That was something that I thought that the Packers played perfectly. We hear the lore now after the game that Aaron Rodgers went up to LaFleur, maybe saw something on the Jumbotron, but it looked like Devondra Campbell knew it was coming. It looked like Darnell Savage knew it was coming. They knew what the Buccaneers were calling on that play. And if you look back at it, they were kind of double covered there. Campbell had his hands on it, but even if Campbell wasn't there, I think Savage played that ball perfectly. So what did you see there? Because that was pitch perfect defensive performance when they needed the defense to step up at their most.
Yeah, I mean, clearly they saw something in the alignment. So I haven't broken down all the game film to be able to say if that was a alignment and play that the Buccaneers showed earlier in the game, or perhaps there was something on tape from film study where in that situation and that area of the field, that's something that the Buccaneers like to do. So they were all over it. And awesome. In the biggest moment, Dane, I don't know if you remember, but it wasn't that long ago. I think last season, late in the season, one of my frustrating lower moments was saying, when have the Packers ever gotten a 2-point conversion stop?
I remember. Can you
and that was a legit question at the time, wasn't it? But now we've gotten a couple here in the last couple of seasons that in big time moments. So that's huge. I will say that it looked like they were walking right into the end zone, if not for that delay of game penalty. It happens. You know what? I'm not going to apologize for it. So I don't think that Leonard Fournette was going to be touched on his way to that 2-point conversion had that play gotten off in time. But you know what? We've been on the wrong side of that so many times. I'm not going to apologize for it. And you're absolutely right. It's good to see that despite my gripe on a few miscommunication issues. They were dialed in the biggest play of the game and when it mattered the most, and they were all over it. So what more can you ask for? The game was in the balance, and they were able to step up and make a play. And just even though the Buccaneers went down and scored at the end, it never should have been in that situation, as you said.
Right.
If the offense, which we'll be getting here to after the break, did their job, and I mean, all we needed was a field goal for them at any point in the second half,
Anytime.
and that game was over. And that game
right.
was over. So, so I think just like almost in the 49ers playoff game last year, you can't blame the defense. The defense did everything they could, everything that they did to put the Packers in position to win that game. And quite honestly, they bailed them out at the end and sealed the win. So kudos across the board to this defense. And able to get, I think, nice pressure. Kenny Clark, a couple of sacks yesterday as well. So I was really, go ahead.
Can I give a shout out to a couple other guys? Rajan Gary is he's just good. You know what I mean? He's a guy who's just good. Every week it seems like he has a sack. So good on him. And also JJ Enigbare got a big uptick at pass rush. And then just before we leave the defensive side, I thought that was notable, not only for this game, Wags, but maybe going forward, that he significantly outstacked Jonathan Garvin. And not only that, I thought that he was in some pretty key moments throughout the game as well. So they put a lot of trust in that young rookie outside linebacker. And I think that's notable because we might see more snaps from him going forward in critical situations. So clearly the Packers like what they're seeing out of JJ. Otherwise, he's not in some of those moments. So that's a big game. That's a stepping stone game from a young pass rusher, I thought.
Yeah, a great call out there. So, Dane, any other thoughts on the defense? Otherwise, maybe we'll take a break here.
Let's take a break, and then we'll come right back, and we're going to talk about the offense.
All right, very good. So, starting with Draftkings Sportsbook. Draftkings is, of course, the official sports betting partner of the NFL, and with NFL action in full swing, DraftKings is talking touchdowns, big plays, and even bigger wins. New customers can bet just $5 on any NFL team to win and get $200 in free bets if they do.
Wags, I don't know why anybody wouldn't sign up for DraftKings at this point. I mean, if that's not enough, everyone can boost their winnings with DraftKings stepped up same game parlays. That's our boy Timmy's favorite thing to do, Wags. Right now, for every leg you add, you can boost your winnings up to 100% with payouts bigger than ever. Why bet on football anywhere else? So to make things even sweeter, Wags, get this. You can throw down on stepped up same game parlays once per game day all season long.
Yep. So download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use promo code TPPN. Get $200 in free bets if your team wins when you place a $5 bet on any football game. That's code TPPN only at DraftKings, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Minimum age and eligibility restrictions apply. See show notes for details.
Wags, so this weekend, as you know, but folks, I went on a bit of a run, team run over the weekend in northern Wisconsin, and I can't run without music in my ears. I don't know about y'all if you're working out. And I had these earbuds in, these Raycon headphones. And let me tell you, I was jamming out to some music. I was listening to some of my favorite podcasts, and it was awesome. Even while I'm running, I'm on a trail, folks. I'm running up and down here, and it's just these wireless earbuds stuck in my ear. They sounded so good. They felt good the whole way. Even when it was raining, Wags, earbuds stayed right in my ear.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, it's just packed with features as well.
Yeah.
Everything from 3 customizable sound profiles, earbud tap function, noise isolation. So you're just getting a great value when you get these earbuds from Raycon. And I couldn't agree more, Dane. I'm not a trail runner like yourself, but when I'm out and about walking the dog, as I've been saying here for the last few weeks, these are just perfect to have accompanying me, and I don't go anywhere without them either. So Yeah, folks, check them out. Go to buyraycon.com today. Use code TPPN15 to get 15% off your Raycon order. That's code TPPN15 at buyraycon.com to score 15% off. Buyraycon.com, code TPPN15. All right. So, Dane, I think let's transition over to the offensive side of the ball. Tale of two halves. And
that's an understatement.
Didn't this remind you? Yeah, doesn't this remind you a lot of the offense that was a work in progress in Coach LaFleur's first season, where we would see like a good quarter or a good half or a few good series, and then it was just like pure struggle mode. And I get that Tampa Bay's defense, as I said at the top, is a really, really good defense. I don't want to take anything away from them, but at the same time, how are you able to have that high of a level of success for most of the first half, and then you get 3 first downs the entire second half, right? No points. You go from 5 for 5 on third down conversions, the first 5 third downs, to 1 for 10 the rest of the way, with one of those coming in their final series. So, Dane, it was befuddling to me. I didn't expect this offense to come out this week and put up 40 points on this Bucs defense, but the way that they started off was just a thing of beauty, and then the second half there was a struggle. So just your thoughts and takeaways, and you can start with the positive, start with the negative. We'll go in either direction here with whatever you think stood out to you, but there was some of both, as I think the point I'm trying to make.
So what bothered me about this, Wags, is something that kind of goes back to even week 1 and previous seasons with the Packers under Coach LaFleur. And listen, again, I'm going to put the caveat. I'm so happy we won. I'm so proud of this team. Offensively, though, and we saw it, I thought, last year in the playoff game, Mercedes Lewis put the ball on the ground and things kind of took a change. We saw it against Tampa Bay a couple years ago in the playoffs. Aaron Jones put the ball on the ground, and, the team looked a little different after that. We saw it again this week. Aaron Jones put the ball on the ground, and the offense just, as soon as they got punched in the mouth, all rhythm was gone, and it was like they tightened up, or I don't know exactly what happens here, but it's like we're looking at a completely different offense going forward. Like when the things are going well, boy, are they going well. But as soon as, we hit a bump in the road, it's like all the brakes come on all at once. And I don't have a good answer for why that is, but it's really concerning to me because I think the best teams in football are teams that overcome adversity no matter what it is, right? And that's easy to say. It's hard to do. That being said, it's very noticeable when something bad happens to the offense, oftentimes self-inflicted. Then offensively, the team just doesn't seem to bounce back the way we would hope they would. So I don't have an answer for it, but that's deeply concerning to me because it's a trend. If this just happened once, I'd be like, okay, so be it. This has happened for a number of years, and I'm sure there are a number of other instances that I'm not even thinking of right now that aren't quite as high profile as playoff losses where that's happened. Now, the good positive part that I'm going to take of this is we still found a way to win. And we're maybe a little bit better as a team this year, and we're not going to rely solely on the offense. So I'm going to look at the silver lining of it, but I would love to see as the season progresses, one of the things I'm really going to be watching for is when we hit a bump in the road offensively, can we overcome that bump? And that's something I really want to see as this year progresses.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. And there wasn't ever really a time where the Packers were able to effectively run the ball the way that they would like to.
Definitely.
In the first half, they were very balanced though. So while the efficiency wasn't there per se, running the football, I thought that they did what they needed to running the ball, and that set some nice things up. A lot of the plays that they were making in the pass game were off the play action in the first half. And you saw the Buccaneers make an adjustment where they really weren't honoring that play action very much. And I didn't think the Packers necessarily got predictable like I've had as a criticism in some of their play calling in the past in those scenarios. Yesterday, it was just tough sledding. I'll tell you what, when you're getting basically no room to run in the run game, no matter when you try to run the ball and whatever the down and distance is, that's going to make it really tough against a physical defense like this. And so you got to give the Bucs a lot of credit. That being said, I think one of the things that I would have liked to see is to lean even more so on Robert Tonyan, and that was one of my keys coming in this week. He had his most productive game as a pass catcher of the young season yesterday, but that was one mismatch where I really felt they could have leaned into it a little bit more. Another thing that they were really missing is something we talked about going into the game, that vertical threat. There was no real threat of the vertical pass game throughout. And so what happens then is when you've got Robert Tonyan or you've got Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon as your security blanket out in the flat, there's not as much ground to cover because the defense doesn't have to drop back as far if they're playing two high safeties and whatever coverage they're in. And so I thought the Buccaneers did a nice job of taking that away in the second half as well. So I personally, Dane, I would have liked to see a little bit more of Robert Tonyan in the past game. And I really felt like they could have leaned on Aaron Jones some more in the past game in the second half. When the runs got taken away, those are two of your premier playmakers in this year's offense. And so I think it would have made sense to try to do more to target them and get them involved, even if it's only going for 4 or 5 yards. That would have given them some more manageable down and distance situations when they did get into those third downs, because that was another big change too. Those first 5 third downs, we saw a lot of third and short. In those last 10 third downs when they went 1 for 10, it was a lot of 3rd and 7 to 3rd and 9. And I think that made things a lot more difficult as well.
Wags, are you surprised at all, talking about the vertical pass game? Romeo Doubs in college, he made a living on some deep balls, particularly
and in the
preseason.
preseason.
And in the preseason. And it's some play action, take your shot with Romeo was definitely what he did in college and in the preseason. Were you surprised that yesterday we didn't see one deep shot with Romeo? And we'll get to Romeo in a moment because I want to highlight some of the stuff that he did yesterday. But from a scheme perspective, I really genuinely thought we'd take a shot at some point, especially with the success he had, and we just didn't do it.
Yeah. Oh, well, let's just talk about Romeo right now. Eight catches, 8 targets, Phenomenal. 8 catches. The best game of his young career.
Phenomenal.
Got a lot of reps with Aaron Rodgers this past week in practice. And clearly that must have translated. They were definitely in sync yesterday. And Aaron said after the game, we're going to go back and look at the tape, wondering if there were more opportunities that they missed to get him the football. So to hear Aaron acknowledge that, hey, he had a great game, but I might have even missed him on a few opportunities. I think kind of goes to what you're saying is, did they have some chances to take advantage of him in the vertical pass game? Perhaps they did. I didn't see it, but it's hard to tell when you're looking at the TV camera angles. But no matter what, he had a really good game. And I think not to get off track at all, but that sort of goes back to the discussion of maybe the preseason reps might have mattered. They get reps together in practice this week, and they're able to immediately translate that out in the field on Sunday. That would have been nice to see earlier in the season. That said, if Romeo Doubs, is this what we need? Because with all respect, and I thought Randall Cobb did exactly what you think you could get out of him. Yeah. That's about as much as I think we can get out of Randall Cobb, what he did for us yesterday. If he gives us that the rest of the season, I'll be extremely happy.
Ecstatic. Yes.
Right. But Romeo Doubs, and hopefully if we can get a healthy Christian Watson, those are like the game-changing type of players in this pass game. Even if Sammy Watkins comes back, which hopefully he does at some point, he can give you something like he did against the Bears, but he's not someone you want to build your pass game around at this point in his career, just with his availability and kind of the speed that he can bring to table. So, Dane, I think Romeo Doubs, to your point, is someone that they can lean on even more. They did a fine job getting him the ball. And even when they were struggling a bit in the second half, I thought they were doing fine getting him targets. Every time he touched the ball, he was getting 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 yards. So it wasn't for a lack of opportunity that the offense stalled for Romeo Doubs, in my opinion. I think it was some of those other guys that in some of the earlier downs could have definitely helped to get in rhythm. And that might have gotten some things going as well.
Wags, going into the preseason, or at the end of preseason, a lot of fans were looking to crown Romeo, right? And talk about, he's the next X, Y, and Z. And I'm always wary of doing that because preseason's preseason. We've seen a lot of guys be big in preseason and then kind of shrink. I'm going to right now go ahead and say I think the Packers have found a big play wide receiver in Romeo Doubs. And I'm going to say it not only because of yesterday's performance, but I went back and looked at his numbers from the previous couple games as well. And in his first 3 games, he has a 20-plus yard reception in all 3 games. Once is nice, twice maybe is a coincidence, but 3 is a trend. And, he's a big play wide receiver, and he's somebody that I think is going to show up for the Packers. And yesterday, he looked really good catching the ball. He makes the plays. He obviously tracks the ball well. So I think we have somebody in him. And I've been holding off waiting to see that because, you just want to wait and see a guy put it together. I thought yesterday was a bit of a, although maybe not a major, 200-yard coming out party. As a Packer fan who's watched the Packers play game in and game out, that was a coming out party as far as I'm concerned. Aaron Rodgers is going to continue to throw Romeo that ball, and I think we found a guy in him.
Yeah, for sure. Dane, we've talked a lot about the balance and the rotation between A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones yesterday. Mm-hmm. Could you make the argument, I'm just going to ask you this, could you make the argument that it might have been a game where they would have been better off riding with one of those guys? I thought Aaron Jones was more explosive
is the one. Yeah.
Yesterday. AJ Dillon, I love AJ Dillon. He just didn't seem to have the speed to be able to exploit some of the mismatches or the holes that he did have, which weren't a lot to work with against this Bucs defense. I guess I'm just going to ask, could you make the argument that they may have been better off just riding Aaron Jones a little bit more yesterday, and this just wasn't the best matchup for a guy like A.J. Dillon?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree. And A.J. Dillon's going to have his share of matchups where I want A.J. Dillon to get the lion's share of the carries too. So, I think that it's going to be a week-to-week basis. I believe in splitting carries to a certain degree, but I also don't believe in doing it just for the sake of doing it. I think that there needs to be purpose behind what we do. Yeah, I thought Aaron Jones just looked like he matched up better against his defense yesterday, and maybe a couple more carries to him, a couple less to A.J. Dillon. Wouldn't have been a bad thing, but obviously it worked out well in the end, but it was just tough. It was tough sledding for the running game. I thought that the pass blocking was phenomenal. I thought that the run blocking, we had our challenges, and that's going to happen sometimes against a fast defense. So all the more reason it would have been nice to maybe see Aaron Jones match up and go a little speed versus speed. I get why the Packers wanted to go a little brute strength, but when there's not those lanes there, sometimes you just want to get your fastest guy out there and get him the ball, and that probably would have been Aaron Jones yesterday. So I concur, Legs.
Yeah, but then the other thing that does is you're right on brute strength. However, you take A.J. Dillon off the field, and trust me, this isn't something I'm advocating for in most situations. Just in terms of, you're running and you're not getting anything. You're just not really getting anything going. When you look at the box score, Aaron Jones' numbers don't pop out compared to A.J. Dillon. I'm just talking about what we saw
eye test
on the field with the eye test, because Josiah DeGuara only got 9 snaps yesterday. So maybe he gets more snaps, and that opens up a few more things for Aaron Jones when he does run the football. So it's a balance. I think it's an adjustment that I think they may want to look at is, all right, if we run into that situation again, maybe some of the personnel is a different grouping, get an additional tight end and try that out and see if that opens some things up as well. Not to mention then, as I said earlier, I think Aaron Jones in the past game, they could have leaned on him a lot more. He only had 3 receptions. And to be quite honest with you, I don't think Aaron Jones is a guy that should have less than 5 targets
I was gonna say,
minimum,
yeah.
at minimum every game. Like, honestly, he should be getting 5 to 7 targets and more than likely, 4, 5, 6 receptions every week, as far as I'm concerned. So it's one of those things where, yeah, there wasn't a lot of room to run, but if they would have been able to get him the ball more in space and just give him a chance out in the open field and see if he could find a few more creases, I think that might have been something that potentially could have opened some things up. We've seen Aaron Jones. It only takes one touch and he'll get a 20, 25-yard run. So the more we can get the ball in his hands, I think the better off this offense is going to be, particularly when we run into stout run defenses like we did yesterday.
Wags, I don't know how we haven't mentioned this yet, but we had the return of David Bakhtiari yesterday. I want to get your impression of a couple things. Bach's back. Awesome. So excited to see David back. I'll be the first one to say, I said it on our preview podcast. No way David Bakhtiari's playing in Tampa. Dude's playing in Tampa. So that shows what I know. But A, what did you think of the rotation? And B, as Bakhtiari works his way back, how do we get Yosh Nijman on the field as well? Because he's proving to be one of the best 5 offensive linemen for the Packers.
That's an interesting thing. Well, first of all, you're right. Don't bury the lead. Let's just be grateful and happy that he's playing.
So glad.
It looks like he came out of it okay. And I saw that they are already saying he might be able to just go without the rotation as early as next week. It was interesting, a little unprecedented. I didn't know what to think of it in the moment. And is it a conditioning thing?
I don't know.
I don't know. That's the puzzling thing. And there didn't seem to be a lot of questions asked. That's the weird thing about it. It's like, oh, okay, well, he's coming back from injury. That happened almost 2 years ago.
They need to give us a press pass. I want to ask that question to Coach
He's
LaFleur.
Been practicing for 5 weeks. I'm glad he was out there. He looked good.
You look great.
Honestly, he did.
Yeah, he did.
But why? Why the rotation? I don't understand. Okay, whatever. Out to your point, Yosh still played well. I was in the moment like, is this going to come back and bite us? Because offensive line is such a rhythm position. You don't see, this isn't like other sports where you guys go in and shift. Offensive linemen, unless they get hurt or they just play terribly, they play every snap of the game. Like, they don't come out of the game. So it was interesting is like the only way I can put it. I hope we don't have to see that moving forward. I would be really curious to your point as to the why. I think it was just sort of they're just playing it safe, but why? If he's healthy enough to play half the game, why can't he play the whole game? I didn't understand that. I guess it worked out, but I don't see how that's a beneficial strategy or approach to take moving forward.
Yeah. So then the other question it becomes, if you look at the Pro Football Focus grade, the 2 highest graded offensive linemen yesterday were David Bakhtiari and Yosh Nijman. It's the greatest problem you could ever ask to have as a Packer fan. Your 2 left tackles or your 2 best offensive linemen grading out against a great defense. So I've got to ask, Wags. I mean, I don't know how an offensive line that includes Yosh and Bach and Elton Jenkins isn't better than what they rolled out. How do we make this happen? Because I think that Yosh Nijman sitting on the bench is a disservice. He can start over the majority of offensive tackles in this league. He just can. So, how do we get Elton Jenkins to bump back into guard and make this work? Because I would love to see Bakhtiari, Elton Jenkins, Myers, John Runyon Jr., Yosh Nijman. That's a 5 that I can get behind. That is a Super Bowl offensive line as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, how you say how? I think you make the change in practice and just do it. Yosh Nijman's a tackle. I think Elton Jenkins clearly shown that he can play tackle. Hasn't necessarily been the level of impact in terms of like what his standards are, and he's coming off a long injury as well, but also learning a new position. Right. He didn't play that much right tackle before he got hurt. So to your point, it's not only making the offensive line as a whole better if you just make that change. It perhaps makes Elton Jenkins a higher impact offensive lineman. Um, Royce Newman, with all respect, I think is a really quality backup guard at this point. And so it may not happen right away, Dane, because perhaps they want to give Yash more reps as that transition happens before they make a change. Injuries can dictate some of these things as well. Unfortunately, it's probably not realistic to expect that the whoever's out there for the 5 offensive linemen are going to be out there the rest of the season without missing any additional time. So we haven't seen the last of Josh Nijman out on the football field. I'll tell you that much. I hope it's not because David Bakhtiari is unable to go as we move forward, because clearly if he's the starting left tackle, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. But Josh Nijman, the only way you can do it is to shift Elton back inside. And I'll tell you what, you don't want to play too many musical chairs, but you posed this a few weeks ago. I wonder if there's a way to get Elton Jenkins back at left guard next to David Bakhtiari, because that's the position that he had been playing previously, is on that left side. So I wonder if that would be something that would be a benefit. The question then becomes, is it Jon Runyan Jr. or Royce Newman? I think we're both aligned to saying we've seen more from Jon Runyan Jr., yes, but is moving him to the other side really worth it? Because now you've got a left tackle and Josh Nijman moving to the right side. You've got Elton Jenkins moving to the into the inside, which it should be fine for him. But then you've got another guard moving to the other side. So that might be a little bit more movement than you would like to have. But in the grand scheme of things, Dane, would that even be something that you would like to see if they can live with some bumps to try to smooth that out? Because then you've got your all-pro left tackle, you've got your all-pro left guard, and you've got really 3 very promising and talented guys in Josh Myers, Jon Runyan Jr., and Josh Nijman on that right side. And I think they can really maul in the run game for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah,
no, I mean, the way I look at it is the Packer, Aaron Rodgers said it, you want to get your best 11 on the field. And I believe that, I truly do. And that's not just position players. If we're talking 11, I truly believe that Josh Nijman is a quality offensive tackle in this league. And if he's sitting on the bench, it's doing us a disservice as a team. And this is what I think about Elton Jenkins. This is how good I think Elton Jenkins is. I think Elton Jenkins is a Pro Bowl quality right tackle. I think he's an all-pro quality guard. That's what I think Elton Jenkins is. So, so that's how I'm looking at things, and I'm looking at it through that lens. And seeing those 5 getting out there, I think long-term, it makes the offensive line that much better. You're right. Injuries happen. A lot of things can happen. But if and this isn't Madden football, and I get that, but the Packers have invested a lot of time and resources into Josh Nijman as well over the last few years. And to have him sitting as a swing tackle at this stage in his career, knowing what he's capable of doing, I think is a disservice to him as a professional, and also a disservice to this coaching staff that's coached their asses off and gotten Josh to where they, working with Josh to get him where he needs to be. I just, I know we both are very high on him, but I would just love to see him get his opportunity on the right side, because I think long term he's a starter in this league, and it may as well be for the Packers, who have put so much time and energy into his career.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. So,
but good problem to have, right? I mean, most teams are scraping at the bottom of the barrel. We're talking about, like, how do we get our best offensive linemen on, and they're all really damn good.
Yeah. And it's really hard to say. You don't think there was any rhythm issues with that rotation yesterday affecting the run game?
Shockingly. And I'm the first to say if I thought so, but no, I thought that there was shockingly no rhythm issues. It worked way better than I thought. When the first series, when Bach left and Yash came in, I was like, what the heck are they doing? And I was fully expecting some issues. The fact that it didn't happen is a minor miracle as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, Dane, I don't know if you did that on purpose, but you just stumbled into a perfect Jerry Seinfeld impression. So congratulations.
What's the
deal? All right. So I think we've covered pretty much everything we can offensively. I thought Alan Lazard did some nice things in the pass catching game. Got Nick,
Big play.
on a couple of holding penalties that I thought were a little ticky tack, but I thought he had a pretty good game in his second game back from injury as well.
Mhm.
So hopefully continued development there. Dane, I think we got to touch a little bit on special teams here. Is that the best special teams performance when you look at all phases of special teams that you can remember in a while as a Packer fan? Because without going and grading every aspect, I just, again, from the eye test, I can't think of a recent special team performance that was better than the one that we saw yesterday.
Pat O'Donnell looked phenomenal. I thought he played great ball. You said it yesterday, Wags. He was a weapon yesterday. I thought he played really good football. I believe you said it. We went Insta Live right after the game, and you said his directional punting was really on point, and I agree. And if you notice, he was punting left an awful lot, and that's because Rudy Ford's over on that left side as a gunner. Rudy Ford, man, talk about a revelation. It seems like every year Goody's been really good at finding quality guys off the NFL. I hate to say it this way, but off the NFL scrap heap, right? Guys that are been kind of cast aside by another organization. Packers went out and found Rudy Ford, and early in the year, he has shown that he's a guy who can contribute to this team on special teams. He's, backup safety, but really he's a special teams gunner. He's an ace, and I thought yesterday it showed the confidence the Packers have in him winning his matchup as a gunner. The fact that clearly Pat O'Donnell was trying to angle that ball left, and they knew that Rudy was going to be down there. So really good work, teamwork across the board. Good snapping, I thought, by Jack. Coco, I thought that Pat played well, and good coverage by the unit as well. Really good special teams, and I agree, Wags. This is the best we've seen in a number of years. As nervous as I was during the preseason, this unit is really coming together as a whole as the season is underway.
Yeah, and it's interesting. You don't think of special teams as a unit that tries to exploit mismatches, but you're absolutely right, and we're seeing that because not only Ruby Ford this week, but last week it was Dallin Levitt was the guy that was exploiting the mismatches as a gunner, and then Keijon Nixon, which you mentioned earlier as well, getting down there and pinning the Bucs on the 1 yard line. So we've got multiple guys contributing, and that's not even mentioning other guys out there that are making nice tackles and coverage and really doing their job. So it's great to see when not only is it not a negative part of the performance that the Packers put out there, but it can actually be part of contributing to the success and really flipping the field yesterday. And that plays, don't kid yourself, that plays a big part in, especially in a defensive battle like this was. I sure would have liked a couple of times the Packers offense in the second half got the ball close or near or over midfield and still couldn't do anything with it. So those frustrations aside, when you're pinning the other team deep in their own territory time and time again, that's going to make a significant impact. So that was truly nice to see, and I think the special teams deserves as much credit as anyone yesterday in the Packers being able to come away with the victory.
Yeah, I mean, you're right, man, and it was good to see. I think that who's really solid out there, just kind of does his job, is Tyler Davis. He had a couple of catches on offense too, but I thought he played really well yesterday, and it was great to see newly signed for the practice squad Patrick Taylor out there on punt cover. I thought that he really lent himself there as well. It's cool to see guys contributing, and there's definitely buy-in right now on special teams. They've got good athletes out there, and they've got a lot of guys doing work. And Wags, I think the key to a good special teams, as you just highlighted, is it can't always be the same guy. Different weeks, you're going to have different guys showing up, and so far in this young season, we've seen different guys show up in different weeks and make an impression.
Yeah, that's so true. So kudos to Coach Bisaccia and the rest of that special team staff and unit. I had some questions coming out of the preseason as well, but for them to put in the performance that they have so far this season, I mean, I know we haven't really gotten anything from the return game, but that's kind of a league-wide phenomenon. I don't think that's exclusive to the Packers. So say what you will about Amari Rodgers, but as long as he catches the ball clean, that's kind of about as much as I'm going to be hoping for at this point. And frankly, he's had a couple of nice returns. I know one of them was nullified yesterday, but I think we can continue to see progress there as well. So, all right, Dane, I think we're closing in on an hour, so we should get into our players of the week. The players of the week, of course, brought to you by Leap Spirits. Leap Spirits is a special sponsor here, and Leap Vodka has been recognized for excellence by industry experts from coast to coast and was recently awarded Wisconsin's Vodka of the Year. So, Dane, where do you want to start with your players of the week? Do you want to start? Why don't we start on the defensive side, because they were the ones that just played so well. So who is your standout player of the week that you'd like to nominate on the defensive side of the ball?
It's so hard to choose when the defense plays this well. But I talked about him early, and I just don't know how I can't at least give the man a nomination. Keyshawn Nixon. I thought he played really well in surprise duty. And it's just, when a guy's playing poorly. So that's really where I'm coming from. And for him to be able to show up on all phases that they asked him to play so many snaps, for him to make impact plays, both on defense and special teams, he put on a very strong performance unexpectedly, I think, going into the game. So I've got to at least nominate Nixon for Big Cheese Performer on defense this week.
Yeah, that's totally fair. And I think he's definitely deserving of a nomination, game ball, whatever you want to say. I have a hard time not throwing Devondra Campbell out there as the player of the week. And Kenny Clark is right there too for me. So those two, I think Keyshawn Nixon's kind of, in my mind at least, is sort of the defensive X factor of the week, the post-game X factor, if you will, just an unexpected lift in performance. But I thought Devondra Campbell from start to finish was just a dominating performance, not only in the box score, but just eye test on the field, just all over the field, both in the run game and the pass game, and culminating with that final play of the game right at the end to tip the pass. I know you said that Darnell Savage was right there in coverage. I totally agree. But all kudos to Devondra Campbell, as I think he was definitely someone that stood out and had a significant impact on the way that defense played yesterday.
Let's go with Campbell. He's heart and soul of this defense, right? He's a captain now. I don't know how this guy was available in June last year. It's just remarkable to see the change, or this defense has with an athletic linebacker like him. So let's go with Devondra Campbell as the Big Cheese Performer this week, brought to you by Leap Vodka. Wags, let's go over to the offensive side. An offense that looks so darn good to start the game, cooled off a bit, but curious who stood out to you.
Yeah, it's got to be Romeo Doubs for me. I would have said Aaron Rodgers if he would have duplicated his first half performance in the second half, but I think Romeo Doubs, 8 targets, 8 receptions, touchdown, almost 80 yards receiving. The rookie went out there, did work, and was a difference maker when we needed it, quite frankly. So there was guys contributing. I think despite the tenor of our discussion, because the second half kind of left a bad taste in your mouth with the offensive performance, the first half, they just looked exceptional. I can't stress that enough. If they just played really, really well on the offensive side of the ball for that entire first half, up to the point of the Aaron Jones fumble. So I say it's Romeo Doubs. I think there's other guys you can mention, but just from a complete performance perspective, I couldn't be happier with what he was able to do, and maybe a little bit of a surprise at just how much he was able to contribute yesterday. But Dane, is there anyone else that you're thinking of in terms of a nomination on the offensive
It's got to
side?
be Romeo. I mean, when you look at Big Cheese Performer, Leap Spirits Big Cheese Performer, I always look at, does the team win without their impact? And I just don't know if this team wins yesterday without what Romeo Doubs is able to do in beating the defense early in the game. And looking at the other variables as a rookie, he's got to be this big cheese performer. So I second your nomination, Wags, for Romeo Doubs being Week 3 Leap Spirits Big Cheese performer on offense.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm special teams wise, I think we both mentioned him now. So I'm just going to throw out Pat O'Donnell. Just, it's never usually good when you're nominating your punter as the special teams player of the week. But in this particular game, he was a weapon. He played exceptional. He had great distance. He had great, direction. He had, the ability to pin deep. He just did it all. And there was it was a collaborative effort with the Gunners getting down there and getting the job done too. So kudos to those guys that we mentioned as well. But Pat O'Donnell, just an exceptional performance yesterday, was really able to directly, I think, contribute to this victory as well.
Wags, as a Packers fan, I'm so used to watching a punter either punt the crap out of the ball or miss it entirely and nothing in between. This whole directional punting thing is pretty incredible. So I don't know how we don't give him a big cheese. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, for sure. So, all right, Dane, any other closing thoughts or anything else you wanted to touch on before we sign off for today?
No, I mean, we're going to be back previewing this New England Patriots team that looks like they're going to be down their starting quarterback heading into Week 4 at Lambeau Field. But right now, Wags, Packers are 2-1. They took care of business on the road against a team with a very stout defense, against a team that has given us a lot of problems in the past. So I couldn't be more proud of this Packers team. And we should all, I think, as fans, just enjoy the wins when they come, especially a quality win on the road on primetime TV against a solid opponent.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better. So as always, be legendary and go Pack go.
Go Pack go.
Every year I know we gonna go hard. We been that team ever since Bart started. All my cheese heads go Pack go. Ain't showing no mercy, cutting no slack, no. I ain't a bad sport and I'll even wish you good luck. Only thing I will